My name's Sasha Pete, and I'm joined here by an extraordinary individual. In 1989, he was inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. In 1999, the FFA Hall of Fame. In 2004, he was ordered the Medal of the Order of Australia. So none other than our 1974 World Cup coach, Rale Rasic, more affectionately referred to as the boss. Welcome, Rale.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I was inducted into Sport Australia Hall of Fame '89 with fascinating people, Jack Gibson, Alan Davidson, cricketer, and late Artie Beetson. And that was such a privilege. And city was a city of Melbourne. That is extraordinary club that I regard pinnacle of an objective of each individual sportsman, sportswoman. When you are invited by this group of people to be part of that Hall of Fame, and you see so many world champions, so many world record breakers, Shane Gould, Don Fraser, may God help you, John Conras would be very jealous if I didn't mention his name. There is a special club, unique club, and for me, that is really one of the greatest honors that I could ever not be part of, but dream of. Amazing.
Fantastic. So, Rale, tell us how you fell in love with our great game.
If you live in a country where I lived, that was only game in those days. Very simple. Was to get a ball and kick between 5 people, 3 people, 10 people, or 20 people. Mm-hmm. And if we could share that ball. But after the war, the ball was made out of bladder, pig bladder, and a lot of socks have been stolen and because, made a fool. And then lot of bed sheets were cut in pieces, and then we paid the price. We had to make the ball dirty. That doesn't look to the teachers that was some damage done within the premises. Those were the days when if you lost toenail or something like this, you just put a bit of dust and continue playing. Otherwise, you are out of the game. No substitution is permanent. So they were the days. Special days in actual fact. The days in where I grew up was after the war orphanage house, people without mother and father, and sharing that orphanage house with so many great individuals who became champion, people like Milan Galic, on a percentages highest goal scorer in history of Yugoslav football. Mm-hmm. Captain of Yugoslav team, captain of Partizan Belgrade, a lawyer in occupation, because if you are part of orphanage house, you couldn't be floater. You had to have education, you had to have diploma or a degree. That was no compromise in that regard. And I regard that as unique opportunity, unique privilege. And in my life, that orphanage house presents a real Hall of Fame where I grew up, learned manners, got education, given opportunity to play sport, any sport that you had talent for, and being spotted by first division clubs from when I was still in orphanage house, and became Yugoslav Youth International when I was in orphanage house. So there's so many aspects linked with that fascinating building that took care from you from A to Z. There was nothing except discipline or acceptance of discipline, order, and so on, etc. Everything else was just impeccable.
So it's amazing how you view in your life something that could be seen as so tragic as a privilege. I think this is really a growth set mindset to share that. Did that carry on throughout your life, being nurtured in this orphanage house? Do you think that became part of your essence?
I did not have one problem with the discipline when I went to the Proletar second division club. Did not have any problem with discipline and order. That was so normal. Instructions by the coach, no problem, because your teachers are the same, in the same role, the same position. At school, no problem, because you have teachers in an orphanage house, then you go to school. The same extension of one to the other. And then discipline, whatever was learned during the day, we would have to complete that in the evening for the next day with the teachers in charge. So for us was connection with the teachers more or less 24/7, because we are in the house with the teachers. We go to the school, or we go later on to the club to obey rules and whatever is said by the coaches at the club level. So the discipline, that big D for discipline, was sort of enforced into us, and an acceptance of that. If you didn't have it, you wouldn't be top student, you wouldn't be top performer in football or basketball or whatever you play, chess, because to tell you the truth, at the beginning I was better chess player than I was football player. And because we have that opportunity, like kids in a town didn't have opportunity to learn chess because it was those days regarded as luxury. So these so-called small things, very minor things, are ones that follow up my lifestyle till today.
Okay.
85 years of age this year, things of the small detail have never changed. And I specialize always small detail.
Yes.
Right. So when you ask someone why is that, why would you think of something so big when you haven't done primary school, high school, college, then university? That's a proper order. So preparation for a life was orphanage house.
Yeah.
And that was a base for us for everything.
Fantastic. And so tell us when you first played the first team football. How old were you?
We were, after the war, you have 200, 300 brothers in the same house, because really that's what we became, that we always respected each other. We shared with each other. And of course, the group that was in your classroom was your group of people that you were much more intimate with, because the sleeping headquarters and lecture rooms and everything else was for those people who shared that with you. But the respect between us in orphanage house was just absolutely incredible, in actual fact, beyond belief, that we had respect for each other's, accepting advice, or being good in maths and physics or chemistry and so on, someone else brilliant in music and so on. So you always had opportunity to tap someone on the shoulder and say, how about this?
Okay.
What is solution for that? So within the house, you don't have to go to school to find out, but when we go to school, we are expressing what we prepared for the next day and what is expected by us to know from the teacher at the school.
Fantastic. Yeah. And you played how many games in first division football in Yugoslavia?
I forget that, but I played. Greatest privilege was if I could take you a bit back that is dealing with my passion. I was selected for Yugoslavia under 18
Mm-hmm.
in a year 1973 and 74, right? And they were glorious years. In 73, I had a bit of a problem with a slight injury, but that injury happened at the wrong time. And then I shared that year and year later with famous name like Milutin Šoškić, who replies Slav Yashin, World 11 versus Britain. Milutin just from youth national team into Partizan Belgrade, fascinating club which reached 3 European Cup finals. And then Milan Galic and I shared the room.
Okay.
And Milan became, as I said, one of the most prolific strikers in the world football, not only in Yugoslav football. And then the same man became a lawyer of Yugoslav Football Federation.
So you're talking about just 53, 54, 1953, 54, yes.
That was generation of the people, Popovic, myself, Galic is a bit younger, Šekularac,
yes.
a year later, Šoškić and I, Mihajlovic, who played left winger for Partizan Belgrade and the Yugoslav national team. We were all in that generation selection of Yugoslav under-18 team.
Fantastic.
And amazing, amazing years. So when I came back from the tournament in Germany, a white Mercedes, which was unusual color those days, was waiting for me at the Belgrade airport, and was president of Vojvodina club to take me to Novi Sad. And I said, I must apologize to you. I cannot go to Novi Sad immediately, but I must go back to the house where I belong because 300 brothers are waiting for me there. And they let me for all week to spend at the orphanage house. And a week later, they came to take me to Novi Sad to join Vojvodina. And this is the journey of something so emotional, so special. Then Milan Galic went to Partizan Belgrade. Then so many of them went to the first, second, and in Yugoslavia, those days Yugoslavia, if you were selected in a third division club, was still great, right? Because for us, football was everything those days. No other sport could be even thought of, compared to football. So from there, I was still going to high school when I joined Vojvodina, and I stayed in a hotel Vojvodina till they find apartment. And I was still making the bed till the lady came in the morning and she said, "You like my job?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, you're doing what I'm paid to do, so I lose my job." And that was the time when I stopped making the bed, because that was from orphanage house.
Yes. Okay.
You had to make your bed. You had to put your cupboard in a proper order, because someone in your group must have a master key and they have permission to open any cupboard to see if everything is in proper order. So you learn your disciplines, and that you never ever in your life regret that you were learning something of that nature, big D for discipline. It's just amazing. Right?
Fantastic.
So from then on, I went to next tournament in 54, and I played in Germany, and was all famous Uwe Seller played for Germany those days. And you reunite with the fascinating people who may be tomorrow stars of tomorrow. And that was marvelous opportunities. And in Vojvodina, a period of time was a transfer period. You could not play as soon as you joined the club. You have to wait through suspension. And friend of mine was on transfer, and his name was Roganovic, Novak, and he was on transfer. So the competition starts, and by just absolute out, they didn't have anybody to play on a right defensive role, and they asked Roganovic to play. You know, in life of one, Novak became gold medal holder 1960 in Rome when Yugoslavia defeated Denmark 2-0, and Milan played in that match, Gary, and so on. But that Novak Roganovic, who was on transfer, he became fullback and full international and gold medal, and yet him and I communicated for till few years ago. We were in regular communication.
Fantastic.
But that's what football is.
Yes.
That is not question of hatred. He got the opportunity, he took it, and he celebrated gold medal, which is dream of any sportsman in this world, to represent his country at the podium, you know, at the stage when you receive gold or silver medal. It's just fascinating. Yeah. So that's a way of life. So then I was transferred to club Spartak Subotica.
Yes.
And also first division club, and a few players from Red Star, and one of them, Ognjanov, right winger, played with Red Star about 10, 12 years, one of the best players in Yugoslav football those days. And he is one who joined with me. I mean, when I joined the club, I couldn't believe that I'm playing with a player of that caliber. Yes. I mean, this is, that is life, and life is a journey. And, you know, for you and I, you're given opportunity, make sure that you are happy.
Yes.
And that you enjoy. And that is my life and my career.
Fantastic. And what made you come to Australia?
I was on trial with, you wouldn't believe, I was on trial with FC Grenoble in France. And someone from Melbourne saw me playing with FC Grenoble on a trial match. And he said to me, "Oh, I'm from Australia and so on. Would you ever consider to come over?" And he said, "From my own money, I will pay you £1,000. Those days, pounds were massive money in Australia. You're talking 61 when he spotted me there. And in 62, I end up in Melbourne. Mm-hmm. And this man kept his word of honor. And that was first money that I received when I came to Australia. So football opens the doors, and you never know whom you're going to meet. When I received telephone call to go to Australian embassy for a medical checkup, I thought that was a joke, right? And not to forget this, I was in original selection for Olympics here in '56, and I got 3 months prior to the kickoff of Olympics, I got serious injury. And would I make the team or not? You never know. But I was in a selection. So all these things in life, some are lucky, some unlucky. Yeah. But memories of that are phenomenal.
Fantastic. And you played for a team that I stood on that pole watching and chanting Plavi. So what was it like playing at Footscray Just?
When I came to Melbourne, you know, to be honest with you, to be very honest with you, Footscray, you know, strong wind, and that dressing room had a space about half a meter, and the wind was blowing. And there are 4 of us, full-time professionals, Jagodic, Mladenovic, Rusmir, and myself, 4 professional players from the first division clubs. And then the coach was Austrian. I don't blame the coach. He said, you run around, and he had the ball on a rubber string. So if he kicks, he said, you kick back, you stop running. So always some lucky bugger kicks the ball and the rest of us keep running. And I said to Jagodic, Alexander, who was much older than I was, I said, are you going to take over? He said, what do you mean? And he was a real gentleman. I said, if you don't take, I take over. I said, because this man doesn't know, right? And Jagodic became coach about 3 months later. And did we really improve? And Footscray was those days, you heard about, one of the best playing. Everybody wanted to watch Footscray playing because that football with the flair, with the imagination, and football as football, you know. And we had that mixture of Hungarian school and Yugoslav school, which was quite cunning and had element of surprise. And so in that circumstances, that was a beginning. And Footscray were on the top and they went down to fifth. Then when we adjusted, we won Doherty Cup and became one of the best clubs in Melbourne ever. And very highly respected and so on.
And it wasn't, you obviously went on to coach Footscray just and ended up coaching many, many clubs within Australia. But it wasn't too long into your coaching career where the top brass came knocking for you to become the national coach. So what was...
Let me to tell you something before. I was brought up in orphanage house to respect orphanage house, teachers, school to respect teachers, army to respect officers, and always fulfill your obligations as impeccable as you can. You never go wrong. So when I was given permission to go to Australia, war friend of my late father gave me permission to come to Australia. And he said, when we call, you return. And 1964, after the Beatles visited Australia and Melbourne, I went back to Yugoslavia to do army service.
That's right. Yep.
And to finish my coaching degree and my degree in physical education. I did everything. And then I came back to Melbourne. We won Ample Cup. Those days was Ample Cup. We beat South Melbourne Hellas 3-2. That was my last game with Footscray. And I go to Dr. Preradovic, who was the president of the club that time. And I said, Doctor, it is my boots, my everything, tracksuit. And he said, what's that for? I said, I'm finding it a bit difficult to. He said, we just brought you back. I said, I'll pay you back. He said, with what? I said, I will be coaching here. He said, I have 7 players older than you. I said, Doctor, age is not definition of someone's maturity. Right? And anyway, Footscray kept losing and they wouldn't consider to give me job and also to be sole selector. And after many losses, they came and finally said, I said, yes, now you call all 7 players who are older than me for a meeting, no others, only this older group. And I went from one to another who were my life friends. I said, I may need you from time to time. They said, the man is not connecting. And this, right? That's how it started. And I dropped Rusmir, who was my roommate in a club in Borac Banja Luka. And he played with Red Star at the beginning. And we were roommates in Melbourne. And I dropped him. And Tommy Stankovic, a player that I just could not admire enough. I said, you're 37 years of age. I need you from time to time. And Tommy responded brilliantly, but Tommy was Tommy. He wanted to play all the time, but he never realized that he could not last week in, week out, 90 minutes. And when many years later, and this is very much humor, his wife was Italian lady, Gina. And he stopped her once and tapped her on the shoulder. He said, Gina, if that Rale Rasic is still coaching me at my age of 80, I would be still playing 15 minutes, right? Because I used to bring in 15, 20 minutes and Tommy would change the perception of the game. And to Gina, he said, I would be still playing at my age today, he said, if he's coaching. So there were many memorable moments that led towards me becoming state coach of Victoria, right? And that is very much deciding factor. You are already dealing with the cream of so many Nestoridis, Kambropoulos, Mandalis, Mickey is still in Melbourne, Mandalis, and John Margaritis.
Yes.
All these players were Frank Midget, one of the greatest players Victoria ever had. Polish trio, Jureki, Zientara and Jankowski, all three Polish internationals, just amazing. Kon Nestoridis, well known in Greece, known by every family in Greece for his contribution to Greek football. And they were so many. Slavia had Willy Šroj, famous goalkeeper of Czechoslovakia. And those were the days when big names were sold, and they joined the clubs like Hellas, Juventus, Just. Then later on, Croatia came quite competitive, but they brought few players back from home, but they developed a lot of players, incredible. Yes. Became later on like a factory, producing just like a, like a joke,
line.
really.
Like a production line.
Yeah. Yep. And then Sydney United here did the same too. When I moved to Sydney, Marconi did the same with Peter Shan, Mariani, Paul Degny. Oh, you could name as many as you want. Marconi just kept producing. Unfortunately, that's not happening today in football in our country. At the moment, we are going through that period of stagnation, and we are not using Ernie Tapai or people like that, or Joe Palinkas out of nothing, right? And so I question what is behind it, right? Vlado Božinovski, these people became Footscry, brother Kazi, Andrew and Shani. Incredible. Otiaboni played for Melbourne, Hungary before he was 16.
Yeah.
First team. So those were the days of opportunity, yes. Take it or leave it, right? And young players were taken. Dino De Marchi with Juventus. Just amazing group of players who took opportunity, learned the trade from famous people, like if you're a goalkeeper from Willy Šroj or Putkowski, later on in Polonia, and Zientara, Jankowski, Jureki, Janček. It's just here in Sydney, Jugal had Mita Stojanovic, Fedor Dunaj, Dacevski, there's so many, Tiko Jelisavčić, unbelievable player, Brajkovic, incredible players who had influence on Ilija Takac, Joe Alagic, who Alagic was locally born and became at one stage Socceroo here and there, but fascinating winger for a club. I don't see that today happening, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that was the period for me when I took Footscry over and I became state coach. And Footscry, because I demanded certain aspects of discipline and so on, and board didn't accept it. So 69, I was back at Footscry and won outright title with Footscry. And fascinating players like Zoraya, Bulevic, Tomi Stankovic, Frank Micic,
yes,
Marko Ode, late Billy Rice. Absolutely fascinating people, Rusmil, Mladenovic. Just, just, um, just became Footscray, became nursery and class, playing classic football. And I won that championship with Footscray, and that was a really turning point. I won also the same 1970 with Victorian under 16 national title in Adelaide. And that year, the Broiker and Palinkash and all these young boys were part of the team. So being state coach, winning championship, I was unopposed national coach.
Okay.
Right. And then with Melbourne, Hungary, for me, we finished second to Juventus. And Juventus those days was a classy team, incredible team. Jack Riley, George Kinnell, Sandy Irwin, DiMarchi, just Kenny, and so many of them brilliant players. But then I was appointed to be national coach, and I'm going on a world tour.
Yes.
And I asked my greatest idol in coaching. I don't know how to call him, Ljubiša Brocic, who played for Yugoslavia before the war, coached Yugoslavia in 1950 World Cup in Brazil, coached Red Star, coached Juventus with John Charles Sivori, coached Barcelona, and then he happened to be in New Zealand and came to Melbourne. And I formed fascinating relationship with Mr. Brocic, and I still call him Mr. Amazing man, had a beautiful apartment and beautiful library at St. Kilda Road. And we became very close friends. And I was going on a world tour, and we have to play final match against Juventus in the final. He said, no, I can't do that, right? And I said, it's not. No one is going to measure how good or bad. Anyway, they lost to Juventus 3-1, and he said, Gospodine, Mister, I told you I shouldn't take the team. But no, I said that was privilege. That man played one of the biggest roles in my life later on because he was coach of Kuwait.
Okay, Kuwait, yep.
And information on Iraq, Iran, Saudis, everybody in the Persian Gulf and so on, Ljubiša would provide, so impeccable that everything that he underlined with a red pen, I read 10, 15 times.
Wow.
Why is saying that? And till he died, he was still my idol, but when he passed away, I lost a great friend that I respected so much. So that early beginning is interesting, how much Victoria had influence on someone who is young. And at 34, it was unheard of to be appointed national coach.
Yeah, because
that was amazing journey.
How hard was it to pick the squad? Obviously, we had many quality players that didn't make our squad. Well, you coached many sides and many championships. How difficult is it going down the list and making sure you're selecting the right people for your squad to make sure that you're going to do the job?
First of all, if you're a good student, you have to be realistic about everything you do. I was realistic about everything. I studied everything that Joe Vlasic, who was previous soccer coach, that he did something wrong. I studied wrong, not good. And they call him uncle. I made sure that I was not uncle to anybody. That was the first one. Then I didn't ask to be boss. Someone bought in Athens, someone gave me a baseball hat called the boss.
Mm-hmm.
and I put on, and that's how Boss was born,
Uh-huh.
right? But order and discipline, every player, you can ask Socceroo anyone you want, I would give them a paper with everything that I request.
Mm-hmm.
There are rules for you to enter this camp. If you don't agree with these rules, you do not enter the camp.
Mm-hmm.
I had no problem. I had one slight problem with one player for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Never, because the rules, everything. I studied hotel at Warunga, where the team was staying, and the meals were ordinary meals like anybody else in a hotel motel, because it was hotel motel.
Mm-hmm.
When I was appointed month before we go on a world tour, 1970, I got to see manager of the hotel because that time I became manager of St. George Budapest here in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove to Warunga and I'm meeting with the manager of the hotel motel with him and his wife. And he's holding the pen. And I said, can you write down what I asked? He said, no, keep talking like this. I said, no. You make sure that you put your pen down and you write. I said, first of all, cleanliness, premises, which part you are giving us of the hotel. He said, all this up front. I said, no, I don't want that because it was heavy traffic, right? And I wanted at the back.
At the back.
He said, that's a different price. I said, I didn't ask you about the price. Then I come to him and I said, what about the food? He said, you can cook breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, and cook dinner. I said, you are saying that? He said, yeah. I said, can you call your chef here? And then he delighted. And he said, who's going to pay? So I pick up the phone of Arthur George. He wasn't Sir at that time.
Yes.
And he said to him, tough bastard, give the bastard whatever he asked for. And Arthur didn't know me well, but he was right in that case. He said, whatever he asked for, you give it.
Mm.
And I will talk to him, Arthur. And that's beginning with that we formed most impeccable relationship that in 4 years we had not one problem with the food, with the drinks, with the chef, with the cleanliness, with the rooms at the back. They were called Socceroo's rooms, right? And you know what? 15 years I would bring business people for lunch there. Never ever I was given account to pay.
That's
Never. They said, would be beyond what you have done for us. So, this is how that Socceroo brand was formed off the field. On the field, it's totally different. You choose the man ahead of football player, you have no problem. And I always selected man ahead of player.
Okay. So
player didn't interest. Selection of character of the man played major role. Otherwise, no selection.
Okay.
Right? Then the rules. If continental player wants basket of bread, for example, Bulevic, Rudic, Dagi Utisenovic, Jimmy Mills, they eat a lot of bread. Give them basket of bread. Right? Then you talk to me who pays for it, because that already arrangements have been made. And all these little things, like one instance, Rooney and Mackay, day was like today, sunny, hot, and we train 3 times a day. 3 times a day. At 6:30 in the morning, 30 minutes run. Just the psychology of it, nothing to do with training. Then showers, cleanliness, discipline, breakfast.
Okay.
Right? Breakfast, whatever we order. right? Then we have a rest. Second session comes around 11:30.
Mhm.
Then we come, we have a lunch, rest, depending which time of the year, pool, recovery, and so on. And a third session later in the afternoon. At Jura, we had mini buses and so on. And all these things, we never, ever, ever have had problem of that kind of discipline. With the staff, when the bus is leaving, all staff gets out of their jobs and crying.
Mm.
And for 4 years, we see the same picture, the same tears. And when we win, which most of the time we won, that clap came. So that Linda and Ashley, the manager and his wife, who are no longer with us, living with us, unfortunately, they became part of our family life.
That's fantastic.
They became part of the whole.
You know what, you were coaching throughout that Socceroo period. Obviously, you were only a part-time coach for the Socceroos. It's not like
That's
now.
good that you say that.
Yeah, so
That
it's not
is
like
good.
now. Yeah, so now everybody's got a full-time role and it's a big entourage, right? When you were doing it
Yeah.
part-time basis, and you probably did the job of what the current coach has 6 or 7 people helping doing, you know, statistics, information.
Look. The greatest information is you, because you select the man.
Okay.
You deal with the man.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't need 5 experts to ask him question because it's Confucius, right? But one man looking in your eyes and saying, was that case such and such? Yes or no? That is the best psychology in the world.
Okay.
Unfortunately, times have changed. You cannot speak today to individual on his own. The door has to be open. I want everything one-on-one.
Okay.
Everything with me is one-on-one, and promising that once, not every time I meet the player, because that's all in writing when we sign the document. One man, one job, one responsibility. I deal with you, and you. And all of these just tick done, right? That how that fascinating team was formed. That's how we got the confidence in each other. We never, ever, ever traveled business class or first class those days. Yes. Never, ever. When someone got the opportunity to sleep on a floor, they regarded that as a privilege.
Wow.
But that did not have effect on their performance, because we knew what the setup is, and we knew who opponent is, and we knew what we had to deliver. So that was the period that when you could say that I was tough. No, I wasn't tough. I was a man with the principles, yes, which were enforced and agreed by every player who dealt with me, who didn't sign the document, did not participate in selection. I say that trip around the world was the most brilliant decision by the Federation of all time, because John Watkins, Ray Bartz, Alan Marnock, about 7 other players could not go. Yeah. Gave opportunity to someone else to perform, but I was very selective and cautious with those who didn't go with me, because other people performed miracles. Yes. And I stood by these who sacrificed everything and went on a world tour with me. And that was mine. Can you imagine 19-year-old Harry Williams? Can you imagine a little Aborigine kid? played in St. George, very attractive, but St. George and national team, they are two different things.
Yes.
Lack of discipline, order, and so on. It was under Frank Harrop, but still, and teaching this kid what it's all about, what it takes to be champion, was such a privilege. Privilege. And Peter Wilson became the best player on the tour, just out of nothing. And when we finished 74, Peter Wilson was voted amongst leading liberos in the tournament 74. And who played that role? Franz Beckenbauer, Ruud Dutchman, who played the same role, and Italianos, who specialized there. It's just amazing, that you can be compared with fascinating players like Figueroa, who was voted Chilean stopper, who was voted 3 times South American Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Right? And so that gave us Peter Wilson.
Yeah.
Schaefer was established.
Yes.
They gave us Jack Riley came into the fold, and Jack Riley was with Hips, American Professional League. And Jack Riley was 6'2". Marvel's goalkeeper, he was with us on a tour.
Yeah.
Then Jimmy Mackay, just Greek coach Petropoulos said that he belongs to European class player.
Yes.
After we defeated Greece in Athens 3-1. And Jim Mackay just was phenomenal. So that gave recognition to Jim Mackay, and that to Peter Wilson, and that to Cole Curran established himself. Harry Williams was recognized as a very, very potential. Then we had Ray Richards, who played striker in the past. He set into that role of number 6 in the front of the defense like a clock, because having that experience as a forward. And then Warren was captain of the national team at that time. And Warren was very fast, great shot, great finisher. But Warren could not fall into sort of certain patterns of discipline, because Johnny was everywhere. And he wanted to do too much. And but John still was a quality player till he got serious injury here in league matches in 71. Then Adrian Alston became undisputed king of football.
Yeah, cool.
Right? And Adrian Alston, on the top of it, was a humor when the difficult times, joker. He would crack the joke at the right time and so on, at the right place. And these were the people who sort of, you could say that Soccer squad was formed there.
Yeah.
Then we added to that Ray Bartz, who was, in my opinion, best player Australia ever produced, by far.
Not just at that time. What was the question? A colleague, because I'm just a junior coach, but one of the fellow junior coaches at my club wants to know, who do you think is the best player produced in Australia, regardless of any era, and why?
Ray Bartz, as a young man, went to Manchester United, and he played with Brian Kidd in the same team with the Manchester youth team. Brian Kidd became international, English international. Ray Bartz lost his father and left England, Manchester United, when he was rated as better player than Brian Kidd. And Ray Bartz, our midfield was a diamond. Ray Richards, Ray Bartz, two opposites, right? Bartz up front, Richards at the back. Then, let's say at that time, Warren and Mackay. That diamond situation. Then right-sided player, either Oti Aboni or Adrian Olson. Then came Branko Bulevic. Branko was 6'1" and left-footed. And Branko, incredible header of the ball, an incredible finisher with the left foot. So he had that height and he had the left foot. Alston, unpredictable. Aboni on a day, you could not compare one player in Australia with him on a day.
Okay.
And again, yeah, that causes the problem to the coach when he's on a day, right? But Oti was incredible talent. I call these Alston, Aboni, and Bulevic, I call them three gangsters because they were unpredictable. You couldn't teach them much, right? You just give them freedom of mind.
Do what you want, boys. Yeah. Yeah. Get the ball and score goals, boys. Yeah.
So, and Bartz in that role was mastermind. Bartz did not, playing that diamond, Bartz would be away from the goal, sometimes up to 40 meters. And this is when he was most dangerous. He scored against Uruguay from 35 meters. He scored many goals from 25, 30 meters. And most complete because Bartz, you would, if you are not expert in football, you never vote Ray Bartz man of the match. But he's a coach's player, and every coach would give him 8.5, 9 out of 10.
Okay.
Ray Bartz was total footballer. Alston, unbelievable player, and Alston played in an American Pro League. After the World Cup 74, he was sold by Eintracht Frankfurt to Hertha Berlin, and he opted to go to Luton Town. Then he went to American Professional League. But Adrian is complete human being, sense of humor, brings the team back to believe when the chips are down. And then we had one weapon, which is unusual, what I'm going to say to you. We had destroyer called Max Tolson, 6'2", left-footed, one of the best headers of the ball you have ever seen. And when you needed Max Tolson, you put the ball into 6, close to the goalkeeper, right? Yeah. Against Iran, Max Tolson kept Australia alive. And they are all combinations that coach needs for successful team.
That's
right. Yeah. And as I said, I play chess. And to me, football was like playing chess, right? Who can deliver that chess mag, right, at the right time. Right?
Tell me about that goal, that third game in Hong Kong. What it felt like after it left the boot. What was the emotion there?
Look, the feeling there. I made one of the biggest moves in my career. In Tehran, John Watkins replaced Manfred Schaefer. Manfred was injured. John Watkins was man of the match. We go to Korea and Hong Kong. I dropped John Watkins because Koreans had Kim Jae-han, 6'2", incredible football player, not because of his height, incredible. So I felt that it would cause problem to John. And I brought in Manfred Schaefer, and I said to Manfred, 9 out of 10, you challenge the ball in the front of Kim. If you challenge him from behind, 9 out of 10 will be foul, which Koreans are very deadly in a dead ball situation. And that shocked the team. Everybody in the team, people looked at each other and said, well, Kim didn't touch much of the ball. Schaefer challenged always in the front. Wilson picked up the ball behind. And then you come to that fascinating 75th minute. Ray reaches the ball for about 45 meters on the left. And Peter Wilson, Alston, Wilson, Alston, all of them so tall, strong, powerful. But Koreans had few powerful people too. So in that bunch of the people, you could never ever find out who had the ball. But it came to Jim Rooney, and Rooney just lifted up that ball, and Mackay outside of the foot from about nearly 30 meters in a roof of the goal. You never see goal in your life like that. And that I had a black hair, and I think it was quite fine. All right. And but then we were masters of that deep formation. With the total discipline, you have to last that 15, 17 minutes.
Yes.
And that was the longest part of that journey of that game.
Yeah.
And you would not believe when we finished that celebration was much stronger in a dressing room than was in a hotel, because the team was so fatigued, so tired, they wanted to sleep, and they celebrated next day when we were heading to Sydney. Wow. How would I explain to you something which really would sort of amuse your mind, that we are going through the corridor and Mr. Jung, who was a liaison officer of Hong Kong Football Federation, puts in my pocket of the track suit something. And I, fortunately, zipped it. Put that in the washing when we came back, and my wife found Chine, good luck in Chinese, 13th November. On it. And I said, when I came home and she opened it and she said, was it? I said, oh, God help. That shows to you how close our relationship was with liaison, because we were coming many times in Hong Kong, either when I go to St. George to Japan, we go to Hong Kong, any other Hong Kong. I formed that friendship with them. And you never know when you need someone.
Yes.
And that was moment of that till Mr. Jung died. I have never taken that off.
Fantastic.
Right? And memories of these moment, like in a dressing room, we are hugging. I was on the shoulder of the player for 3 minutes, and even I was a bit fatigued at the end. But I go to the room, I can't sleep. I'm sort of close the eyes and I see, is it possible that 11th match is over? We played highest number of matches than any other nation in the world. England played 4 matches. We played 11, right? Any group which had 4 countries would play only 4 matches, right? Yeah. And we played 11. And that was, for anybody, long journey.
Yeah.
But when you look around here, you can see it is. This is sort of like history telling you what is Apia undefeated, Adelaide City with Justin Fashion, who took his life, unfortunately, under unfortunate circumstances, Argenor Muniz, John Perrin, Marconi with Roberto Vieri and Peter Shan and others here. And then you look over here, Dr. Socrates and Cathy Freeman, alive, Pelé, Maradona, Christian Vieri. This is something that you see. I look at Kevin Sheedy or Kevin Keegan. Kevin Keegan. What can one say? European player twice of the year, and we formed great friendship through
Yes.
football, right? Then, all of these memories that you can see, that life there. Um, only 16 coaches of the World Cup. This Kashmir blanket, only 16 coaches of the world. Then friendship with the Pelé, with Maradona, friendship with Vieri's family, Dixie Deans of Adelaide City, Pixie Stojkovic, Šekularac,
Yes.
Rajko Mitic, and many, Bobek. Fascinating journey of someone who had no mother, no father.
Mm.
If you didn't have opportunity, if you didn't have an orphanage house, who knows which school you would go to and how long would you go to school?
Mm.
And that given opportunities that you can never ever forget one thing. I installed, and I say I this time, which is not always, I installed into Socceroos that national anthem is a national symbol.
Mm.
That's a power.
Mm.
That's a power. When you hear national anthem played, you have extra play.
Mm.
And Socceroos obey that. And I said, one who cannot sing doesn't have to sing, but you will stand still. When few weeks ago, rugby league match was played between Queensland and New South Wales, state of origin, when some players refused to be part of the national anthem. Well, that would be first and last time you get a jersey from me.
Mm.
I don't care where you come from. I don't care who you are. Who you are. That national anthem had a lot to do with our success.
Yes.
Our mascot was a former prisoner of the Second World War, Jim Skane. He would carry koala and kangaroo. A jacket of his, which I have here in a museum, would have all our names in gold on green, and at the back, new national anthem on the golf Whitlam.
Mm-hmm.
And all the teams that we defeated with the red
line.
Line across, and all the teams in Germany, East Germany, West Germany, Chile, question mark.
Mm.
And on a pants, which is lemon color, Hurrah, here we come, in both German language and English. And the hat, the same. That there is no price in the world. There is nothing. When I asked Jim to be mascot, Jim Skane told that he was 20 foot tall.
Mm-hmm.
And so then our physio, dear Stuart, he was everything Peter Van Rijn, because we didn't have a separate people. He was a Dutch background. Peter became father to the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean father, whatever player needed when he worried to come to me, they went to Peter.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unbelievable trust, and I release something to you that I don't release to anybody. Whenever we are in a camp, Socceroos, home or away, Peter Van Rijn, night of the match, 1 minute to 10 would knock on my door. We would talk about problems that I don't know. Mm-hmm. And the problems happen on a table, massage table. Mm-hmm. Player tells it. Mm-hmm. Boring, family, foreign performance, injury, and so on. That is called trust.
Yes.
That is called respect. That is much more than 5 assistants.
Yes.
Right. You understand what I mean?
Mm.
I was, with my background, because I don't know if you know, I was first man in history of this country who introduced psychology of sport. And late Talbot Smith, who was in Australian Air Force here in Richmond, kept calling me, reading how I think of Socceroos and so on. And we became very close friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost Talbot in an air crash in Santiago, Pan Am. And I, in respect to Talbot Smith, when he was lost to us, I took John with me as one of his staff members because of my respect for Talbot. Took him to the World Cup. So those things, Talbot used to ring me up. He said, "Mr. Rasic, I read something sensational. Oh, I'm sorry to take your time. You're a busy man. I speak to you next day." Next morning, oh, this was fantastic. And so that's how we became very much into it. And loss of Talbot was incredible, incredible. So, these are the things that make or break the teams.
Yep.
Believe me, trust me. I would coach over 1.3 million kids in my lifetime.
Yes.
And I can only show you these 5 fingers. Wouldn't be 5 bad kids.
Mm.
But I can show you many bad coaches.
Yes. And so
right?
That's a good segue. What advice do you have for the modern Australian coach?
They don't listen at all. They know everything. And I'm outright straightforward. Once you think that the computer will be your solution for your life problems, then you won't have a business. Once you think that the computer only is solution for you, right? Computer cannot predict for you winner. Computer cannot sense for you who is the player who is in a good mood, spirit, who is going to have a great game tomorrow. Computer can do many things. Now, to be straightforward, computer is a marvelous asset for you to have data and everything else. But human touch will never, ever, ever be replaced.
Yes.
And the older you get, the smarter you get. Like we had a generation of Raul Blanco, late Victor Fernandez, and Scheinfeld. Les Scheinfeld. Les Scheinfeld didn't do much coaching, but Les Scheinfeld had an unbelievable sense for a quality player. And he would be sitting on a grandstand and he would say, Raul, that boy in green number 7, put his name down. Les would be 9.5 out of 10. That can't be ignored. Computer can't help you there, right? And I think today that we don't produce Vlado, Bozinovski, Mandali, Saboni, many other great players that played for Australia. Later on, you had much more investment, more money. Viduka, Q, Bresciano, Grella, that's different. But I'm talking when we didn't have money and resources, how come that we created 10-1 more players?
Yeah.
That's a question.
Yeah. Important question that we currently need to answer. Maybe during now with the current framework of the absence of money, hopefully we start playing some young kids in our national league so we can produce more players.
Yeah, but you see, I want to tell you something. It's unfair to the kid who is not ready to play. Sir Alex Ferguson, manager of Manchester United, biggest names, him and Matt Busby in history of the club.
Mm.
He said following, I stood out meeting with George Best and Eric Cantona, rearranged that for other time, but I never stood down meeting with my head scout because he always had something special to tell me.
Mm.
That's what we are not having in Australia. That's what no one respects. Because that is no computer in the world
Yeah.
that can tell you that.
Mm.
When I came to Australia, I swear to you, if I spotted Frank Michich when he was 18, 17 or 16, he would be equal to Franz Beckenbauer.
Mm.
6'1", 6'2", knew his football. Where from, I don't know. Incredible personality trait. Fascinating human being. What do you want?
Mm.
Unfortunately, when I took over Socceroos, Frank was towards the end of his career, right? But that is one of the greatest talents I've seen worldwide, Frank Mitch.
Fantastic.
So, if someone took this boy and said, you go to Red Star or a Dinamo Zagreb or so on, or Everton or whichever club, Frank Mitch would do, right?
Yeah.
So, these things you have to take into account.
You have met some fascinating individuals throughout your life. Rocky Marciano, Neil Armstrong, just to name a few. You've got Bob Marley wearing Socceroo. So football has taken you everywhere. I mean, and it's filled your life. What are some of the things that stand out for you throughout your life in football?
Look, it is a wonderful journey. Fortunately, you link something you like doing and you have talent for. Mm-hmm. Management is not something that you buy at supermarket. You must have a management skill. People are they are not the tools, they are humans. Mm-hmm. And with Jim Rooney, Jimmy Mackay, Ray Barnes, Adrian Alston, so many of them. I taught Harry Williams basics, but I always looked, I said, my God, what a talent, right? What a talent. And then Cole Curran, Aussie kid, would go through brick wall for you, mm-hmm. right? So you have to groom that person according to his qualities, encourage that person and communicate with that person on every day. I speak to Jim Rooney sometimes daily. Mm-hmm. I speak to Adrian Alston sometimes daily. I speak to Ray Barnes and his family weekly, Max Tolson daily. And Max Tolson asked, he said, boss, why you didn't play me on so many occasions? I said, because whenever you played, you had a special game. Mm. Right? Whenever I brought him, he solved the problem. Mm-hmm. But he could not play 90 minutes of constructive football because Max was very underrated player. He had a beautiful left foot and magic touch. But compared to Alston, Branko Bulevic and Otia Boni, Ernie Campbell, so fast, so explosive, these people, they even didn't know what is outcome. They were so brilliant. Right? But Jimmy Mackay, Meko, I would just ring him up and say, how do you feel? He said, no problem. Jimmy Mackay never said to me for 4 years that he had a problem. Mm-hmm. Rooney never problem. But I tell you something, we play in Tehran after we beat Iran in Sydney 3-0. Mm-hmm. police escort took 2 buses, 15 kilometers outside of airport. Fear was of attack on the team, on Iran.
Yeah, big crowd.
So, yes. And we go to training and they were throwing shot put and javelin and so on. And Adrian looked at me. He said, "Hey, boss, this is," I said, "just keep marching, don't worry." But I was worrying too, right? Because they were to provoke you.
Yes,
right?
unnerve you. Yes.
An incident that I don't release very easily is Vic Tuting was Tasmanian, liked his alcohol, and he traveled like a member of the party of the federation with us. Without my knowledge, he entered the meeting in a case of the third match against Iran, and Korea already qualified. So Korea could be third match, which it was. And just 1 in a million luck. And that means that media and communication with media are also important. Amongst media people, I hardly ever had one problem with. If someone wrote a story I didn't like, I would force them to rewrite the story next time. Right. No, but look, and Tommy Anderson ran down in an Intercontinental Hotel in Tehran. He said, "How comes you are not in a meeting?" I said, "What meeting?" He said, "FIFA meeting." He said, "You know that the third match?" I said, "Who is in the meeting?" Tuting. He said, "He doesn't know anything about it." So I said, "Which floor?" Tommy said to me, "Come with me." We got a lift. And I, with the fist, asked them to open. Ken Austin, Englishman, who was part of the referees committee of FIFA, said, "Mr. Rasic, this is private meeting." No. "I'm sole selector of this nation. No meeting can be held." And Vic Tuting already a few drinks. He said, "Rasic, get out from here." If Rasic got out from there, we would have 7 days between a match in Seoul and in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And in my case, that I forced my way in, and Ken Aston said, "You are perfectly right. It has to be 72 hours. I said, "Thank you, Mr. Aston." That's how that changed, that Koreans who drew the match against us have to go on the same flight to Hong Kong. Could not recover because I sent someone to see them in training. They had 6 players first day out of training. Okay. Mine, I had 1 extra. I was looking who wants to play. Yes. 1 extra.
Yes.
Right. So these are the things. And if you ask me what has to be something with me that I didn't continue, that's a reason. That would be reasons like that. The lack of knowledge and a lack of understanding and so on. But managing the team, it's not only coaching.
No.
You're managing people and people's minds. Yeah. And you know what? The offer that I had, and I regret that I didn't, I would be scared to tell you the figure that Iranian Federation put offer to me. In hundreds of thousands of dollars those days. And I didn't even look at it.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. And so, you know, life is a journey.
Yes.
There has been good and bad moments and good and bad decisions. But when I finish in Seoul, we are in a hotel and the weather is very cold. November in Korea, it's very cold. And hailstones and rain at the same time. And I asked players as they put screw in, it starts on, and I said, when you return the ball to Jim Fraser was in goal, I said, always outside of the goal frame.
Yeah.
So if Dougie miskicked the ball, Jim Fraser ran here, 1-0. Right? 2-0, few minutes later. John Barkley from Melbourne, great friend, Scotsman, great friend. He said, we are gone. I grabbed John with both hands like this, threw him off the bench. I said, get off. Cross from Karan Bulevich, 2-1. just exactly referee. We didn't go in the center. 2-1, we are going in the dressing room. And I said, now we won this match.
Good.
And John Barkley wants to come in. I said, you do not belong. And that was psychological plot. And I could never explain to John that that was something that is something that is special that you have or you don't have to apply in that critical situation.
Yeah. So
And
this is.
you know what? Then when we arrived to Sydney Airport, I tell you, you can criticize Aussies. You can say whatever you like. When Aussies love their team, nothing in the world is equal to that. They turn about 4,500, 5,000 at Sydney Airport when we arrived from Hong Kong. What a fascinating moment. And that moment was worth all the money, all the glory in the world. Nothing could replace that moment. And, and these Socceroos who were part-time workers, part-time players, part-time husbands, what a bunch of the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful human beings. And all of them respected that the national anthem of Australia. There was no other anthem.
It's
Right. So,
what a fascinating, captivating, intelligent, inspirational dialogue we have had today. Rale Rasic, your boys still call you the boss. For me, at 85 years old, you have the gravitas of like a North or South Pole. You know, we could speak for hours.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you for that compliment. I would finish off that the 11 or 12-year-old German playing in streets of Hanover impressed me when he started communicating with me in the early days. And we are still great mates. His family, my family, Andre Kruger, and Uwe Seller, Overath, Franz Beckenbauer. I don't know how could I thank these people for being what they were. Right? I became very close with Overath, and whom I didn't like because he scored that fascinating first goal against Australia. Right? But those memories are, there is nothing in the world that can replace that. There is nothing that could be truthful, powerful. Whenever chips are down, I walk in, and I want to conclude with this. If you see that picture there, Dr. Socrates, that's an artwork. I met Dr. Socrates for other reasons than football.
Yes.
Because I knew that he was behind.
He opposed the political junta in Brazil. Yes.
Yep. And Dr. Socrates was my target to meet. Then Dr. Socrates told you in the Senna, Formula One was one of his mates who had the same philosophy. And he said, we fight for freedom of Brazil. And that really, when I said through interpreter, because Socrates spoke English, would not speak to me in English. And you know what? Doctor wanted to be perfect. So he spoke to me in Portuguese. And I said, what a privilege. He said, privilege is mine. And I said to this Mauricio Peña, who is a great friend of Doni, goalkeeper of Liverpool and Roma. He said, what does he mean by that? You know, He said, Mauricio said, doctor said that he was one of 22 who didn't do anything because Brazil were eliminated by Italy. Paolo Rossi scored hat-trick in '82 World Cup. And he said, this man was in charge of 22, so privilege is mine. How deep is that?
Yes.
I'm today one of the best friends of his son, Socrates Jr., who follows exactly line of thought of his father, works everything that he does for the benefit of homeless people and people who don't have enough.
Yeah.
So when you think the world is so large, massive, no, it's so small. And you find this genius, footballing genius. Nothing in this world could match that genius of Socrates in football terms. Football to him was not the number one. Humanity was number one. So I'm more into humanity. I'm global ambassador for Power Chair Football.
Yes.
I learn more from people with so-called disability because that word I object. It's not disability. They just can't do certain things that we can, but we cannot do many things they can, right? So, you know, I'm looking for something to replace that word disability because so many of them are geniuses in their own right. Intellectual geniuses, predominantly. Right? So the world is very interesting oyster for us to examine. There is so many positives from here to Vienna, to Berlin, to Hanover, to anywhere you want to go. There is always someone kind. There is always someone who cares. And unfortunately, society today is not very caring. And I'm looking for that sort of to be part of my life journey, because when you think that I was 101 number in orphanage house,
Yes.
and Milan Dalic was 103, we shared the room. That 101 stands tall, and my mission is, next one, a massive mission would be dedicated to 101, to help those who don't have opportunity. So football is just part of a life.
Yes.
And if you can be glorified as I can be glorified with this. My next book is Why Brazil Won 5 and Germany 4 World Cups. That's a contrast in football philosophy. And in the middle of that is number 8, Socrates, that Germans are trying to create that kind of player. For 100 years, they can't create that player. Like Socrates, like Maradona, like Pelé. For some reason, Germany can't, but they won 4 World Cups.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, there's so many things. Next time, this is half time only, or probably 1/3. I would be, when it's question of you being involved with the youth, with me, I don't have a price for youth. For me, it's only a matter of time. Only give to them.
This has been an absolute honor. Yeah. So the obviously you've heard it first here. On today is my 44th birthday. The best birthday gift I could ever have. Speaking to the legendary Rale Rasic. Thank you very much for your time, sir. You are as sharp as a tack. You've got a mind of a 18-year-old, not 85. So thank you very much for joining us and sharing a little bit of your genius today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would be genius when you sip that rakia tonight when you get home. Just have one for me and say, happy 44th.
Okay,
And
thank you.
And the privilege is mine, as Dr. Socrates says.
Thank you,
And
sir.
thank you very much. You're a thorough gentleman. Thank you.